Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to go through some fundamental concepts relating to inventory management. So let's kick off with two related terms, aggregate and item inventory. So aggregate inventory management, as the name stands, it combines the inventory items into certain categories. One of the basic approach to categorize inventory items by their function, right? So inventories can be classified or can be aggregated as work in progress inventories, raw material inventories, finished goods, and so on, right? So why we need to do the aggregation? Because this simplifies the overall inventory management and gives a very high level holistic view of cost or the overall cost associated with different categories, so that we can establish a common objective towards the inventory management for different categories for the overall organization. The other way to classify this is, if we take a real example, let's think about Walmart. Now Walmart, they sell hundreds and thousands of items in a particular store, right? So if we only pick up, let's say, a aisle where you have coffee and tea products, you have each different item, which is, let's say, a flavored coffee, black coffee, green tea, black tea, and other different variants of those. Those are all individual finished good inventory items. We can classify all those as tea and coffee inventories, right? So that will give us a very high level understanding how much items or how much items we have in stock for this particular category. And then we can start looking into supply and demand patterns for these items. So when we do aggregation in this example, for example, for Walmart or retail sector, most of these items which are aggregated in a particular category, they can act as substitute for each other, right? So which means, let's say if we don't have a particular type of flavor or black coffee or from a particular brand not available on an aisle, so other product can possibly substitute when consumer buys it, right? Which may not stand true for manufacturing, right? So you have specific requirement for a raw material or parts components. We need to have those present. So that's where the item level inventory management comes into play. So yes, we are aggregating items based on certain categories, but still we need to manage those items at individual level, so that, especially for the manufacturing firms, we can bring raw material parts as they required into the production facilities in order to continue manufacturing the goods and products, right? So in this particular course, we are going to focus on the item inventory management in most of the time. We'll go through various techniques, formulas where we can define the relative importance of inventory management. So we will look into the ABC analysis for that, and then how to control order and when to place an order. So that's where we'll look into EOQ models, EOQ models, and so on, right? So we'll look into the various inventory management methods when it comes to this topic. However, at the aggregate level, we're going to look into the demand management, production planning, right? So we'll try to create a balance. Okay, so having said that, let's look into the different types of inventories, right? So raw materials, which are materials not entered into a production system in a very basic form, right? So like your minerals, ores, before they're processed and converted, let's say, into steel or any other material. So all those are regarded as raw material. And similarly, we're going to have some purchased parts and or semi-finished goods. So these are the items which are converted into some form and will be part of the finished good, like your tires for the vehicle, the exterior, interior panels, the music system, speakers. So those are kind of purchased parts. Those are converted into some form or shape, but those will be used in a finished product like a vehicle, right? Then we have work in progress. So these inventories are still in some processing, so which means items are already entered into production system but are not finished yet, right? So when you are assembling a vehicle on a production line, that's a work in progress, right? And then we have the finished goods. So that's when the goods are, or vehicle is in a production facility is completed and is inspected, ready to shipment. So that's a finished good, right? So once the goods are finished, so these will be moved to the warehouses, distribution centers before they are sent to the retail locations so that we can satisfy the customer demand. So from the flow of material perspective, we have four basic forms: raw materials, purchase parts, so which are kind of semi-finished goods or which are going to be part of the end product, then work in progress, which are still we are working on these items, not finished yet. Then finally, the finished goods, which needs to be moved through your warehouses, distribution centers to the retailers so that the consumers can use these products. The another classification which comes along is classifying inventories based on their functions. So for example, we can classify inventories in order to deal with increased demand for future. So we are anticipating the demand is increasing, and then we want to keep inventories so that we can satisfy increased demand, right? So those are called anticipated inventories, right? Good example would be here. Let's say we are a small shop selling chocolates. On each day we sell around 100 boxes. Well, as the Halloween is coming, we are expecting that in the Halloween week our demand is going to increase by 10%. So now instead of keeping 100 units as inventory per day, I may want to keep 1000 boxes, right? So that's anticipated inventory. Safety stock are used to deal with unforeseen circumstances, right? So most of the organizations will keep some safety stock in case we have quality problems where you are discarding some products. We need to get more from the warehouse. You may have lead time issues, especially during COVID when we have shortage of workforce, shortage of production capacity. So your suppliers may not be able to fulfill the requirements in a timely fashion. You may have lead time issues due to the transportation network failure, like the Suez Canal, right? Or the delays in tractors, trailers who are delivering your product, right? Similarly, you may have the equipment failure, right? So any inventory that you keep to deal with unforeseen circumstances is serving a safety stock function, right? Then we have lot size inventory. I won't say much about this at this point because we'll come back to this concept later. Always remember, when the replenishment occurs, when your suppliers delivers product to your facilities, those are always delivered in the form of lots or batches. So the items which are delivered together as one lot, as one batch, will be called as lot size inventory. Now the lot size will vary from product to product depending where your supplier is located. So if you are working in a just-in-time fashion, which means you're only ordering what is required for a particular shift for a particular day, so your supplier may be based locally, right, very close to your manufacturing facilities. So in this case, the lot size may be equals to 1, right? Now on the other hand, we are buying product in bulk from Far East. So in those cases, the lot size will be very big, right? Maybe thousands of pallets, a big container, and so on, right? So it's going to vary depending upon demand, depending upon where the supplier is based, and depending upon the supply risk, right? Okay. The next one, we have the transportation inventory. So these are the inventories which has left your supplier premises but not yet arrived, right? So these are somewhere in the transit, right? And we have a dedicated formula here which we can use to calculate the transportation or pipeline inventories. We'll go through one example in class. Why is it important to look at the transit inventories? Because your transit time will vary depending upon where supplier is located, right? So it's going to have direct impact on the transit time. So for example, getting inventories from a local supplier perhaps may only require 1 day of transit. Getting it from Far East to shipping lane, it may need 35 to 45 days. And you may have issues when you need to get the custom clearance, you need to do the inspection on the products which are coming in, right? So which has direct impact how much inventories you hold at a particular location to deal with this transit time and days or the transit problem, right? Next one is the hedge inventory. We'll not go into any calculations on hedge inventory, but the companies, they always keep inventories to deal with price fluctuations, right? So if I'm a furniture manufacturer, I may see, okay, the lumber prices are going to go high in the coming months due to increasing demand. I may want to buy more lumber and keep it in warehouse so that we can hedge against the price increases, right? So the companies who work with the basic materials, especially the copper, they do lots of hedging by buying upfront so that we can deal with increasing prices. Decoupling, so these are the inventories which are kept between two processes to create some independence, right? So the idea here is when we look at different processes or different parts in supply chain, each of these processes have different lead time, they have different processing requirements. So we want to have some inventory sitting in between so that the processes are working independently. In the simple example, if process one fails, if we have no inventories in between, we need to stop this entire production line. But by keeping little amount of inventories, a small amount of inventories, we can create an independence. So which means process two can keep on going and we can repair or fix the issues with process one and bring it back online, right? So that independence is important. And later on, we'll touch on this concept. We don't want to have too much inventories because that can create waste and add to excessive costs, right? So there's a balance, how much inventory you want to keep in order to do the decoupling, right? Then from the supply chain perspective, your warehouses, distribution centers, they're working as decoupling entities, right? Because if your retailer needs to order every time from your manufacturer, it's going to be take very long, right? The lead time can increase exponentially because manufacturers have limited capacity. Again, going back to chocolate example, when Halloween comes, every retailer is putting promotions, they want to sell more, but manufacturers, they can't just expand their capacity exponentially. So we are having these products already manufactured and stored into the warehouses, distribution centers, and ready to be shipped, right? So that can help us to reduce lead time and make sure the service levels are maintained. The next one is the MRO, maintenance, repair, operating inventories. So these are the inventory items which are not direct part of end product, what are required to smoothly run your facilities, right? So like tools, you need tools to do the repairs on your machines, right? So that's the MRO. Printing papers, right, that you may require, ink cartridges, cleaning supplies, right? So all those are the MRO supplies which you need to maintain the manufacturing or other facilities so that we can continue with the production. Okay, so we're going to stop here, and when we start in live sessions, we'll start with the objectives of inventory. If you have any questions, please let me know or ask during the live session. Thank you.